Hi, this is Mark from Taurus Tree, and today I'm really excited because we've now been doing our breathwork sessions at Taurus Tree for just over 3 months now, and I get to meet some amazing, inspiring people who just remind me about life and all the challenges and all the things we all go through. Yeah, I'm super excited. So I'm not going to dribble on for long. I'm just going to get Paul straight into it. I've got Paul Baxendale. Paul, morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Great to have you on.
Great
I'm
to
very
see you.
good. Yeah, you too. So let's dive into it because I mean, you sent me your bio and I went, there's a man with a few stories. There's a man with a few stories. So the first thing I'd love to jump into, Paul, you're from the UK. I think you're from the Northwest, sort of Manchester originally.
Yes, born in Manchester.
Massive. And diving right into it, you started martial arts pretty young. What type of martial arts did you start?
Yes, I mean, my childhood was all really about sports. Sports and books really was my childhood. At school, I played everything from football, rugby, cricket, tennis, swimming, the whole lot, really. When I was about, I think, 11 or 12 years old, I took myself just down to the local Shotokan karate club and asked if I could join. The instructor there is kind of, is anyone with you? No. Can I? Is it okay if I join in? And so that was my beginnings it was really the beginnings of my lifelong journey in fitness, which led to focusing on health. Did Shotokan for probably 5 years or so. And then I really got into the martial arts and into the spiritual aspect too, which led me
Because
over to,
that must have been quite early days. Sorry to jump in, but I'm just thinking karate, 1960s? Is that 70s?
I was born 66, I'm
Okay, so we're
59 now,
70s.
so not quite that
70s.
old.
I'm crap at maths as well. So let's go 1970s karate. I mean, you had Bruce Lee and all these
Yeah,
guys coming out, these from the
19 Into the Dragon comes out. This would have been late 70s. So
Mm.
yes, very, very early on, there weren't many martial arts clubs around. So it was a very new kind of thing. Back then, very hardcore. The stuff that was taught, the way it was taught, there's no way it would be allowed today. And as I said, I got very interested in Bruce Lee and obviously with that Chinese martial arts. And then I switched over to Wushu, which is basically Chinese martial arts, probably about 5 years after beginning karate. And I just found that the Chinese martial arts had that full kind of holistic approach to mind, body, soul, which appealed to me. It was also very, very harsh. My master would have a rattan cane, which he would use, he would get us to sit in a horse stance. Anybody out there who knows martial arts will know the horse stance. And he would set an incense, stick a light for an hour. Anyone who falls out, whack, back up again, whack, back
wow.
up. There would be runs, mile runs. You had to keep a mouthful of water. At the end of the run, you had to spit out the full mouthful. If you didn't, back again, do another lap. And I loved it. I just absolutely relished every single session.
Because interesting, Paul, every time I chat to you, there's one theme that if it's hard, you're there. Like if there's pain, you're there. And we're going to get onto your next bit because that's super interesting. So your first, you appreciated the hard work and effort that had to make you good is what I'm getting from that. You had a very strict people at the start, because that leads me on to your next bit, because I think that the next piece of your life is really what I guess set you up for the whole of your life.
Yes, it did. From the age of 14, so just a couple of years after I started martial arts, I set foot in a gym for the very first time. And again, gyms weren't like they are today. There weren't many of them, and the ones that were pretty kind of hardcore. And I was very fortunate to actually have a fairly local gym that was owned by a guy who was a promoter for a lot of the American pros. So he would fly them into the UK for seminar tours, promotional tours. At 14, 15, I was seeing the best guys in the world. So like for a young guy, just starting out training, to suddenly see these absolutely huge bodybuilders who were pushing crazy amounts of weight with intensity that was just off the scale. Now, again, I was watching it and I just couldn't help but resonate with something that they were doing. It just appealed to me. Uh, I guess intensity kind of links everything up. Martial arts, the gym. You know, I didn't want to go to the gym to, lift a few weights. I wanted to train like these guys were training, all out, like leave nothing left. And I was very fortunate in my martial arts career and then in my bodybuilding career to have incredible mentors, incredible role
Yeah.
models even. And I guess I was probably searching for that. That was probably one of the
Mm.
things that I was actually searching for as a very young man, is searching for a male role model that had the traits that I resonated with. What did I want myself? I wanted that feeling of being able to have control over my own body and my own health, my own body's strength, my own body's abilities. It wasn't a team sport. I didn't have to rely on anyone else. This was all down to me. If I trained like that, if I ate right, if I slept right, then I was going to get the rewards that I was due. And if I didn't do things right, they wouldn't come. So having great mentors was an absolute blessing for me. And that, yeah,
Sorry, on that point, it's super interesting because I think about my childhood, definitely a different path to yours, but similarities. And I'm curious because in many ways, I felt like I didn't have great role models in my life. And I also didn't feel 100% safe. So I thought, well, I can only rely on me. So maybe my trust was broken a bit. And my I guess deviation is I'm going to get in sales because sales relies on me and me only, and I can only trust me. And I know I'm going to kick ass every day and I'm going to put 100% in. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that sort of similar?
very similar. Yeah, it is very similar. And actually, it's only with hindsight, looking back at my childhood, that I now understand that one of the reasons that took me in the direction of martial arts and weight training was a need to feel safe. This was a way in which I could make myself safe in this world, to
Mm.
be able to build a physique with the abilities to be able to be safe. And that comes from an incident very early in my childhood, which, again, only very recently in the last couple of years, I even remembered. But looking
Big
back, it makes so
motivation.
much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
it
always a
makes
big why, isn't there? There's always a big why. There's always a big why between why you have that drive and then understanding it. And I don't want to jump ahead, but I think then on reflection, as you say, in hindsight, you kind of start to connect the dots together, why you are where you are today. And maybe what served you in the 20s is maybe not serving you so much in the feast. And it's that flip, because I think I'll come back to this about a little bit how my journey and your journey are similar in different ways, but what I've had to let go of. And I think, speaking to you, what you're letting go of, and it's wonderful. So you start bodybuilding. Now you kick ass yourself, you get up the competition, just walk me through a couple of those amazing results that you got and how you felt when you got them.
Well, competition wasn't something I had any interest in. When I started training, my reason for training was I was looking at pictures and films of Bruce Lee, looking at the guy thinking, that's how I want to look. That's exactly what I want to look like. How
And
do I
especially
do
that
that?
that punch he does with his fingers on your chest and just goes boom. I always remember seeing that and was
But
like,
even
whoa.
visibly, his
Yeah.
physique was just rock hard. Everything, sinew, every muscle defined. That's what I wanted. And I thought, okay, what did he do? So I did my due diligence and research. What did he do? How did he train? Did he use weights? Yes, he did, daily. What else did he do? He copied. Again, copy from people who have got the success, and maybe you'll find some tips in there, some things that will work for you.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I remember this phrase: a smart person learns from their mistakes. A wise person learns from other people's mistakes. Just follow what they've done, because you've got to figure out that they've figured this stuff out already.
I would love to say that, I was smart and I was wise, but I was neither. I wasn't either when I was young. I made a ton of mistakes, and that's important too. Like openness and honesty, something I hold very dearly to me, because I know how important it is for myself, but also my relationships with other people. If I can be honest enough to my weaknesses, to my vulnerabilities, then they can maybe feel like it's safe and trusting to be able to confide in me. And so, yes, I made a ton of mistakes, but I did a lot of things right too. And
Because you were in the 0 point, I don't know, you got to these weightlifting, these bodybuilding competitions, you've done phenomenally well. So just talk to us a little bit about that, and also how you felt, because that's still zero. I would 0.0000001 of the population ever got to what you achieved.
yeah, yeah, competing wasn't something that originally I had as a goal, but as I trained and I got more into weight training and then actual bodybuilding, because I actually, within a year, saw my body change.
Mm.
And as a young man, to be able to see that you have the power to change how you look, that whatever you like, if you do this, this, and this, you can change absolutely the way your body looks like, the way your brain's working, what it's focusing on. And I was doing a lot of things right. I was obsessed. I have a very addictive personality. I have a kind of OCD, obsessive personality. And I learned that pretty young. And I learned, what? I have to be careful with this. Because if I get addicted to the wrong things, I'm
Mm.
going to end up in a very bad place. If I get addicted, things that are good for me, things could work out well. And that's just the nature of my personality. And again, with self-reflection, looking back, I did pick up on that, quite young. Oh, I am this way, so let me put it towards this, because these are the results I might get. And yeah, I won a few tin trophies, I won a few crystal trophies, and you know, I could list all, the titles I won, the British Championships, third in Europe, fifth in the world. They didn't really mean that much to me, the actual winnings of the competitions. I mean, it was a nice feeling when you won, that fleeting moment of, yeah, number one. And funny enough, I remember one video of one of my shows when I was very young, and when I was an LCA winner. That was something that I kind of did to the audience, like, yeah, you're looking at number one, which is very, look, it's very arrogant and egotistical and all that. That sense of, yeah, no one else on this stage trains as hard as me. I know it because you can't. You can't train harder than me. No one else has been as strict as me on my diet, because it's impossible. I didn't miss one meal. I wasn't 10 minutes late on one meal. No one else could have rested and recovered better than me. I got 8 hours sleep every night. And if I could, I grabbed a cat nap during the day too. That was my life 365 days a year. Did it
You
give
were
me
just dedicated, though. You had this solid, by the sounds like you had this solid vision of where you wanted to go. You knew what you had to do, and you went, I'm doing it. There was no ifs, no buts, no coconuts. It's just like, that's what I'm going to do. So that single-minded often is where great things happen. But I think you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about your competitors. You learn a lot about, what gets you that extra 3%. Because when you're at the game that you're at that level, its percentages is tiny. I remember you telling me about that. It's just like, If I have to work Christmas Day because the others aren't, I'll do Christmas Day, you know, and that's the sacrifice that you were prepared to make to do this. So I think what I love is really understanding what makes you that person, because you are a rarity, you know, and what your learnings are is you had that cockiness. And I think also when I look at the animal world, because they're a great example, you know, you get stags, buck stags, you know, who want to take over, and they get all ramped up. They're full of testosterone, and they're all like, that happens in the natural world. And then it's the person at the head has to kind of put them into place sometimes and do that things. But you definitely need that in the animal world. Well, why would we be any different as you're growing in the hormones? And, you know, you've got that warrior kind of,
What
isn't what you did there absolutely perfect for that sort of thing?
it is, but there was a duality in place. Me in the gym and me on stage was not me in the rest of my life. For example, from like my mid-20s, I've always owned gyms or health clubs or something like that, something where I could just do what I love. And at the same time, I also worked on the doors for over 10 years. Now, I had a reputation in the town where I worked the doors of being the nicest doorman in town.
You could.
Anybody who anybody who had met me, you know, out of the gym would have said, "And, you know, I hope I hope to think that people still think today, Paul's such a lovely guy. He's a gentle giant." Was the word they would use then. Because I had no aggression left. I like my gym was like to describe me in a gym back then would be like, it was like every day. Well, every day we trained 4 days a week. So every day, and
Mm.
our gym was underground. So it was like every time we trained, we did a descent into Hades to fight the beast. And it was life and death. It was a life and death struggle. And every time we trained, it was like we were going to the cliff's edge of life's reality, peering over the edge, looking down at the devil in the fire in Hades, laughing at him, and then just pulling back. Like we just went beyond anything that was remote. Like nobody else was doing this. And
Mm.
again, I had a great mentor, who taught me how far I could. Like I had this point where I thought I could go, and it's like everything's gone. My muscle fibers, they've gone. My brain finished. And that's the point he says to me, 3 more reps, lad.
Yeah.
And your brain goes,
And
and
the
what?
vomit bucket.
I kind of describe it to people, and it's something that a very famous old bodybuilder called Tom Platz, he had a similar mentality. When you get to that place, when everything's gone, imagine someone's putting a gun to your head and saying, if you don't get 3 more reps, I'm going to pull the trigger.
Hmm.
You'll find 3 more reps from somewhere. It's like your body has this safety mechanism, and it goes to this place and it goes, that's enough. If I go past here, I'm in danger zone. So don't go there. And you have to override that to really
Yeah.
get the results. If you want to get
So
extreme
that's
results, you go there.
so that's self-control then, because you talk, there's two pieces I'm picking up for this. There was self-control on the doors because you were using your daily tools to get rid of maybe that aggressive, that thing that we can sometimes have. And two, mentors push you. You know, if more people were doing that route, you know, and getting out of their heads into their bodies, really pushing themselves, I can imagine that just steers you up for life, that, you know what, you get to a point where you go, I can do anything that I set my mind to because I've pushed it so far, so often. It's natural for me. And I guess the flip side of that is on your down day, or you always got that thing in your ear going, you should be training, you should be training, you should be training.
No,
You should, no, you
no.
managed to do that.
Total honesty, I could not have trained anymore. than I did.
Right. So you
My
went to the mat.
body was so exhausted. Leg day, our legs would hurt for 5 days. We
Wow.
couldn't sit down on the toilet without being in agony.
Making that
And
noise.
7 days rest in between each body part because our bodies were just crushed. Our central nervous system was just annihilated with the amount of intensity we'd put on it.
Yeah.
So,
So it's
no, we
intensity.
couldn't
Is that the
train anymore.
intention? So that intensity and tension, you knew you'd stripped everything out. I used to do this thing in the sales offices. I used to tell everyone to grip their hands as tight as they can and then relax them. And everyone would do it and they go, ugh. And then I say the second time, do it harder. And then I say the third time, do it as hard as you possibly can. And everyone go, ugh. And then I go, well, which one did you squeeze the hardest? And they said the third one. But I said, you should have squeezed the hardest on the first one. And you're right. It's just like, it's in life, isn't it? So Paul, I mean, I think 2007 was like a massive change in your life. If you're comfortable talking a little bit about that, I think it's really important for our listeners to hear about that.
Yeah, I will do, and I'm happy to talk about it. Just one other point I think I'd like to make
Sure, please do.
about the bodybuilding years is that it gave me such a knowledge of humility.
Mm,
For many years, you work and you work and work. You're a little guy in a gym until you're the biggest guy in the gym, until you're the biggest guy in the town. And it's easy to think, oh, yeah, I'm something, Everybody's looking at, I walk down the street, everybody would be looking at me like, who's that freak? I remember walking down the street, somebody screaming out, you're a friggin' monster. What are you? But then to have a mentor who's the best in the world, it reminds you, yeah, you're a big fish in a little pond.
mm,
You want to go to the big ocean, and then you're just a little fish again. And you're nothing. You're nothing. So, great lesson in humility is that, yeah, I realized I was just a little fish. Look, I was a big fish in a little pond. That's nothing. You want to get out in the big ocean. That's where you really want to test yourself, Throw the ego out the door. Every time I walked into the gym, the ego was left at the door. The gym is no place for an ego. Really isn't. It's a life and death struggle. And you need humility and you need awareness and discipline. Our training sessions were violent. There was violence. It was so intense. It wasn't just anger or rage. There was actual violence in what we were doing. It was that extreme. And to know you're just this little fish again, it's almost a great feeling to know, oh, no, I'm nothing. I really am nothing. But it did define my identity because everybody knew me. Paul Baxendale, the bodybuilder. Paul Baxendale, the coach. Or Paul Baxendale, Dorian Yates' training partner. He's won this one, like.
you're getting labels, you're getting tags, you're getting, yeah.
Yeah, and if you're not careful, and, maybe I wasn't careful enough, but you take on these labels. That's who I thought I was. Come 2007, I'm walking up down the stairs one day in my rented house and the stair tread just drops away. And I fall probably about 6, 7 feet onto the concrete floor. It's just a badly made set of stairs. Broke my hip, pelvis, ruptured quadricep, pancreas damage, internal damage. There I was in hospital. Okay, who are you now, son?
That's a lot of inward work. The start of a lot of inward work, I'd imagine.
What was interesting at the time, I was like, no, I know how to come back from this. I know how to rehab. I know how to get back to training. I know how to get back on my feet. And it was probably 18 months for me to realize, Paul, you can't do this. Your body doesn't work anymore. Your legs don't work anymore. Your back's broken. Your hips are broken. You can't do it. What are you gonna do? And I had 3, probably the darkest years of my life.
And you were a dad at the time. You had kids, or yeah.
Yeah,
So you had the
yeah,
family herd,
yeah,
and that dark time. I mean, it's tough when you, as you described, you identify yourself with something that's so iconic, and it's like the cruelest thing that could possibly happen is what they threw at you. It's like, again,
it took away my career.
yeah,
It took away my source of making money, providing for my family, and it took away my identity.
mm.
All of those things together in one moment, that was tough. That was one of the toughest.
Randomly doing something you do every single day without even
Yeah,
thinking
just
about
walk
it.
up and down the stairs, just walking up and down the stairs, you know. And there followed 3 extremely dark years where I was searching. I guess if there's a word to describe my life, it's probably a seeker. I've been looking for things. I've been looking for things, looking for knowledge, looking for wisdom, looking for truths. And it was during those dark years where I'm not embarrassed to say how bad things were. Like, there were days I thought, it's not worth going on. Honestly, what's the point? Everything I've ever known, everything I've ever done, everything people know me for, it's gone. One of the first things I did, and I had to do this, and I regret it today, but I had to do it back then. I threw away every trophy I'd ever won, except from one that I'd given to my mother. I threw away every DVD, every video of me in shows. I threw away every photograph of me in my life, really, my bodybuilding career. I threw away every photograph. I could not stand to have one reminder of the world of fitness anywhere near me. It got thrown out, gone. So I knew I had to form a new identity. I had to die in order to be resurrected. I needed to be burnt through the ashes to be the phoenix who rises again. I didn't know that at the time, but that's what I've come to understand that was going on. And I gradually began to understand that actually my life, and I don't know whether other people are kind of experience this, maybe they have, but my life has been a series of deaths and resurrections, of burning up and new creations. And I've just gone through another one recently.
I heard someone describe it, and I don't use this word lightly at all, suicide, but they almost said had to suicide my ego, because we think, there's only, and it's almost like, because I went through a similar thing with business. I thought I was this entrepreneur. I was identified with all my different businesses and and then when it goes Pete Tong, and suddenly you feel less than, you're not providing for your family. You kind of like, what am I up? What's the point? And then the self-doubt. And there's something though, isn't there, Paul, that there's a little there's a little flame. It's like on a boiler, when it's not on, but there's a pilot light there somewhere. For
Yeah,
me, it
and I
was
think
like,
that's very, very important for everyone to realize, no matter what you're going through. And this was a phrase that actually got me through that period. All things shall pass.
yeah,
I
cloudy
read it
days.
somewhere and I just kept
Yeah.
repeating it to myself. And it was during this time that I've always been an avid reader. When I was 17 years old, I had the option of going to university or going to work, and I chose to go to work. If I'd gone to university, Cardiff University, I would have studied history and philosophy. So that's always been there in the background. But at this point in time, I just read voraciously every bit of philosophy I could get my hands on. And the one school of philosophy that helped me the most was Stoicism. I
Mm-hmm.
went way back. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca.
Do you want to just quickly just give a one-liner for what Stoicism is? Because we hear it a lot. Tim Ferriss talks about it all the time. What actually is it?
It's a school of philosophy. It's ancient. It's thousands of years old. basic premise of stoicism is really acknowledging that you cannot control everything that happens to you in life. Sometimes life just throws curveballs at you and you have no control over it, but you always have control over how you react to everything in life. And it's
That's an
taking
important point.
ownership of that. Your reaction, your response, you have control over that every single time. If you find yourself getting worked up, angry, frustrated, hey, you've always got the choice to choose another emotion.
And I love that because, Paul, because you use two words there, react and respond. I've always thought reactions, like if a doctor puts a cream on you and your skin reacts, it's not such a good thing. If you put it on and it responds, that's exactly what you want, is to respond, maybe more so than react. Is that fair to say?
Yes, yeah. And the response rather than the reaction is a millisecond.
Yeah,
It
that
can
breath.
be how if I live my life at my very best, how do I respond to this? Do I want to live my life as my very best version? Or do I want to be at the mercy of the
Mm.
waves and the storms and the reactions of other people and other things? And no, actually, I don't want other things to affect me. I want to choose how I feel and how I respond and how I react.
So it's like a blade of grass. Depending on the way the wind blows, you will point. Oak tree, solid. Loses a few branches on the way, but hey
Sure.
ho, it
And
can cope.
of course, easier said than done.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. So Paul, you moved up to Scotland. You went back to university,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you followed that passion of yours and philosophy. And then I guess between then and now, we obviously met through the breath work. What attracted you to, you maybe saw an advert or something like that. What attracted you to come and try out the breath work, the 9D breath work?
I think it was just part of my journey of seeking. I've been on a spiritual journey for many years, and that led me into very many different aspects of health and mind, body, soul health, holistic, to understand that our health is a entire system. It isn't just the brain, it isn't just the body, it isn't just a part of your body. Everything works together. And so I'd been on this journey, and my best friend had spent the weekend at Wim Hof's. And fortunately, he's in a position where, he's actually friends with people like that. He went to his house, stayed at his house, and he was telling me, hey, Paul, come over, spend the weekend, with us. And so that got me into breath work. And yeah, I don't know if I saw the advert or my wife saw the advert for it, but I was just, yeah, you know what? I had just been through sepsis. So I had been pretty ill,
Yeah.
and my brain wasn't functioning as it was. And so my main focus, at the start of this year was recovery of as much mental capacity as I could get back. And breathwork was one of the things which, hey, it sounds like this could make a difference. And so when I had the opportunity to come along to a introductory session, absolutely 100% I'll try this out. I will try anything, everything out. Obviously, I do my research, like,
And you still came?
yeah, hey, you do your research on breath work,
Oh,
you'll
breathwork, not
turn
me.
up.
That's fine.
You'll turn up. Look, how many thousands of years have people, knowledgeable people, spiritual people, been focusing on breath work,
The
whether
breath.
it's meditation or prayer or whatever.
Yeah. Yoga.
Yeah, look, I'm open. I'm open to everything. But breath work, I knew it had benefits. I just wasn't sure what they would be. I had no idea what they would be. But I'm like, again, 100% or nothing. I'm all in this thing. If I turn up, I'm all in, and lo and behold, there I am, just about finished 12-week, 3
This
blocks.
is.
And
And it's amazing, Paul, because obviously when we're doing the breath work with people, I obviously oversee it, make sure everyone's all right. And the intensity that you go into your breath work is second to none. I'm like, you still have that fire in that belly to go, you know what? I'm going to really dive into this. And the difference, I guess, with our breath work as opposed to Wim Hof and stuff, which is brilliant, is we also take you on journeys. So we're taking you on a journey to deal with certain things, whether I'm enough or dealing with maybe some traumas or something like that, but something where you can guide your breath to really investigate different parts of you. So have you found any of them like bring things up that you go, okay, I hadn't realized that was something that maybe I needed to inquire about?
Yeah. And again, like total honesty, every single session, I get something out of it. And it's not something minor.
Mm.
It's like something I can never sleep the night after a breathwork session. I don't know what it is, but my mind's just like on overdrive. And like it's brought so many things up. And it's that self-reflection and self-understanding that things might have been locked away for years, decades. Maybe from your childhood, things are being blocked off. You've blocked them off. And for very good reason, because it's too painful to go back there and see that stuff sometimes. But 9D breath work, it allows you to go there. And it's a safe environment. I'm safe there. I
So
know
true.
I'm supported. Do I feel like I
And
need support? Not really, but it's great to know that it's there. And the group is just just a collection of amazing people, completely different people that I would maybe never meet in life. And what such a blessing that is. I mean, who wants to go through life seeing the same people over and over and again? To meet new people with completely different interests, different perspectives on life. That's wonderful. But every single week, I've got something pretty major from every session. And I would recommend it to anybody who has the willingness and the desire to become more and to improve themselves, because that's what it's all about.
so there's a couple of interesting points there. One is I totally get it's as we build this community of breathers and heal. The one thing we all have in common though is we all want to heal something. We all want to release something that maybe doesn't serve us anymore. And I think that's the common goal, but you're absolutely right. And you can meet people in real life and think, oh, they're doing really well. And then actually, no, if they only knew what was going on in my head, if they only knew what was going on. And that's the thing that I think that the disarming of the 9D breath work and the group coming together is you realize it's okay to not be okay and to heal from that.
Yeah.
Because
I think
the minute you,
and there's a humility. There's a
yeah,
humility involved. It's almost like it's never said, it's never spoken, and maybe people aren't even conscious of it. But that ego, those egos that you carry around, even though we do our best to disarm our egos, it's always there. It's always there. But you leave them outside before you come in. And there's just this humility that everybody who is there we're all here for the same reason. And we're going to support each other here. There's no judgment. There's no right and wrong. There just is. And it's been a blessing to me. It's the highlight of my week.
no, I'm learning just as much either way. So it's amazing. And I think going back to our ultimate, how we started the conversation about you went off and because you can only rely on you and you have to do this and you have to do that and similar story to myself. I had to get in sales. I had to build my own success. I couldn't rely on people. I'm neurodiverse. I forget my words. I have short-term memory problems, dyslexic, all the wonderful things that I've been given and gifted. But at some point you realize actually this journey is much easier with trust and getting people to help you, because being the hero all the time is great, but sometimes allowing others to be your hero is a bigger gift. So I know my journey has been very much trust and being on my authentic self and really understanding myself. Is your journey similar, Paul, or am I just putting words in your mouth?
Authenticity. If there was one thing that every day when I wake up, my morning routine is I wake up in the morning. First thing I do is I read a line of philosophy, just one sentence. That's
And do you
all. One.
randomly pick a book up? Do you just
Yeah,
open up a book and
yeah,
read it, or do
yeah.
you? Yeah.
I have real physical books. I'm old school. I'm no good with
Look at you.
Kindles or anything like that. Yeah, I get a real physical book and I open it up just wherever it opens and I read one line, one sentence, and I just reflect on that one sentence. And that just kind of recenters me. It gets me in the perfect place for the day. It reminds me, hey, you've been gifted, man. When you were born, and it's my belief, every single person in this world is born with a spark of divinity, a unique gift, everybody. And it's our job in life, our responsibility in life, is to understand what that gift is and then to share it with as many people as we can. If it's just your family, whether it's your community, whether it's society, share it. But you have a gift. Everybody has a gift. And, it's so easy for people to look at successful people, and just say, they were born with this unique skill or skill set or whatever. No, you were too. It's just a different set. You have a different gift. And everybody has a gift. Every single person I've ever met has a gift. But too often people allow lives to just happen and they get lost. And they don't ever stop and think, what should I be doing with my life?
Do you think it's a bit of fear as well, Paul?
Yeah, for sure. And look, society doesn't help us because it does instill fear. If you don't follow this path, well,
Yeah.
but
Or if it goes wrong?
if you follow this path, then you'll be okay. You'll have a roof over your head, you have food on the table, you'll be able to heat out, you'll be able to, feed your family, whatever, if you follow this path. And it's scary to think, no, actually, I'm being pulled here. Like, this feels right to me. Like, here, it's like, I resonate with this. And you know what? When I do this, other people kind of go, yeah,
Yeah.
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 And it's
I
like,
often talk about that as well. Coming from the heart rather than the head, you engage with people on a level that you can't with the head. Once you know that thing, that whatever that thing you're talking about, and you really bring it into you and you resonate with it on an authentic level, I think that's a very powerful and very a huge driver for success, whatever that success might be.
it's
And it
like
might be
at
really small
school
things.
or at university. I've seen the greatest minds. I've been taught by the greatest minds. I've conversed with the greatest minds. But if it's only in here, it
Mhm.
has no impact. They resonate with anybody else because it's all here. And it's like it has to also come from here. If you can align those two things together and reach other people from that place of unity, of authenticity, you will be heard, you will be listened to, you will have impact.
And I think you're right. Also, I just think about songwriters. You get a songwriter who plays the song that he written. You hear him or her sing that song, you'll get a much deeper connection with that person than somebody who's had a song written for them, just because they've gone through it. It's real to them. It's based on their lives, whatever it is. But it's a part of the body, and that's where I think things like the breath work and stuff makes you realize your head's only one part of the story. The body, the spirit, they all have to be aligned. And if you can do that, then you can come from a power of strength. So rolling this, Paul, you got so much experience. You got and we've only touched on a bit of it because of the time. But like, if I wanted to get help from Paul, or what's Paul's things doing next? What's your plans now, Paul? Because we've had chats about what you're thinking about and what you're focused on at the moment.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think this year has just been another death and resurrection for me personally. I had this wonderful career in gyms and bodybuilding, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. You know, that's why it was so hard to lose it. And then I went into the world of academia, 12 years in the world of academia. And again, I loved it. I loved it with such a passion. You know, it was all I wanted to do, was to finish off, do my PhD and to lecture. But that wasn't the journey that life had in store for me. Instead, initially, well, I had this accident that left me disabled, and I can't do this and that physically. And okay, so there's a new path for me. This year, I had something else happen where my mental abilities were compromised. Okay, well, you've taken my body away, now kind of taken my brain ability away. What can I do? And it's so easy. And again, like, this is a message for anybody out there who's kind of struggling right now, is like, your mind will work against you so quickly, so easily, if you're not careful. Be so careful with the narratives that you tell yourself, you know, the words that you tell yourself. You look in the mirror, you know, what do you tell yourself when you look in the mirror? You know, are you critical, or are you just like, I'm at peace with what I see? You know, I, I love myself, you know, I'm a good person. And I think that's so important, because this day and age, there's so much narratives about right, wrong, good, bad. Hey, at the end of the day, just be a good person. Just be a good person. So I've had to go through another dark period. You know, I won't lie, it's been dark. Did anything come out of it? Yes, yes. Something always comes out of it. Like, as you said, there's always that little light there, and that light never goes out. So just know the light always shines, and just head towards the light. Head towards the light. So what am I going to do now? Well, one of the things that I've always done in my life, whether I owned gyms, when I emigrated to Australia and had my own business, whatever I've done, I've always done non-profit work. What I used to call non-profit work. You might call it charity work or whatever. I gave a certain number of hours per week, and I just gave them to a charity, or in Australia, I set up my own charity. And actually, that was more rewarding than the business success I had. You know, within 12 months, I had well over $1 million turnover. Within 12 months, I had all the major supermarkets on board, and yet receiving an award for my charity work meant more to me than every single contract I got
Mm.
in my business. So I'm like, hey, you know what? Everything I've ever done in my life has been preparing me for this moment. Everything you've ever done, the discipline, the commitment you learned when you were young, you were training martial arts, going to the extremes, getting whatever success there was, the world of academia, the success I've had, you know, 2 first-class honors degrees, and then, yeah, that's success. But I've learned things along the way, which have just been in preparation, I think, for what ultimately I think my life's purpose was always meant to be. And I think there's been clues all along my life. And again, it's only on reflection, self-reflection, to look back and say, now, what's the constant factor here? What's the thing that kind of was always present? And For me, it was people always came to me for help. Even when I was in school, people always came to me for help, to talk to me. I didn't have any answers. I didn't know what I was doing in terms of answers. I was just an ear. But in the last few years, that's kind of accumulated to such a point where people were coming to me with quite extreme problems. Now, fortunately, I am trained to help people like that. You know, I think I mentioned in my bio to you that, I worked for a time for the Anthony Robbins company and coached over
Yes.
in, Singapore and Hawaii and Australia and all those places. That was a joy to me too.
Mm.
But what was even more joyful was the charity work that I got involved with in setting up charity days. And so I'm now setting up my own charity. I'm in the process of doing that. And that's my next journey. I'm not going to say too much about it now because I've not
Sure. No,
launched it. I've,
absolutely.
I've not told anybody about it. Within the next month, anybody who follows me on social media will know that I've been absent from social media for 8-9 months or so. And there's been a reason for that because I've actually been working quite hard in producing something I hope is for you, is for everybody. And it's something, I'm pleased with, and I hope is going to be helpful and useful to other people. So that's where my life is kind of heading now.
I mean, like I say, we could have a 5-hour podcast with you, Paul, and maybe we'll come back and maybe visit different things in the future. But, so does that mean you're open for clients at the moment? Are you still mentoring people? What, if somebody wanted to reach out and go, I really
Yes,
resonate with Paul.
I am still mentoring people. And if people wanted to contact me, the best way is through my social media. Probably
So we'll,
best
we'll put that in there.
on Instagram. Yeah, just send me a direct message on there and we'll have a chat. Never, get involved with anybody without a really full consultation so people can get to know me and I can get to know them. And because I may not be the right person, to support you right now, and you may not be the right person for me to support. It really is a delicate relationship. But if I can help, I will. I'll help anybody. Well, and actually, we're saying that that's something else that I would probably suggest to people watching. If you're of a giving nature, a very giving nature, if you're like an empath by personality, one thing that I've learned over my life is just be very careful in terms of knowing your limits for
Mm,
how much to give,
yeah,
because
absolutely.
the takers don't have any.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's true. I mean, you have to protect yourself. And that is so true in the wellness industry that, you
Yeah,
do
if
have to
you're
protect your
not
own
if
energy.
you're not
Yeah.
running at 100%, you can't give the best to people. So you have to protect yourself. If I'm running at 97% and I'm giving people 97%, that's not good enough for me. I have to give people 100% of me. So I have to protect myself. And that's something I've only just learned in the last kind of 5 years or so. Because I was just
Mm,
giving, 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 and I was burnt out. I was getting 4 or 5 phone calls a day. My family was suffering. I was suffering. My academic work was suffering. And I'm like, but I want to help people. Yeah,
yeah,
you want to
yeah,
help people. But you
yeah.
know what? You just got to know your limit. You're going to be working at 100% for you to give at your best. So, yeah, if people are of a very generous, giving nature, just give yourself that little thought, know where your
That's
limits
great.
are.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I'm learning is I'm going into this world of helping and wellness and stuff like that. There's one question I ask, and the question I ask on one of my intake forms, and if I don't get an 8, a 9, or a 10, then I'm likely not going to work with that person. And that is, how committed are you to change? Because if the pain is not strong enough, if the reason, the motivation is not strong enough for you to go and train on that Christmas day, for you to just to do that thing, for you just to show up, then now it's going to change. And I think probably you and I, in similar ways, even though slightly different stories, is we really had to be in the valley of almost death in order to force us to change. And that's just the universe going, look, you're going to have to change a few things because how you've been running ain't going to be how you're going to go running forward. And yes, I can relate to so many of your stories. And we've only, like I say, done a couple. So, Paul, that's brilliant, mate. I really appreciate you jumping on this
Well, it's
call
been my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
and love actually going on the journey together because I wouldn't have got to
Yeah.
meet you if I hadn't started this journey. So it's just inspiring. I love the energy and I really appreciate you jumping on. And I'll put everything in the show notes as well with all your Instagram details and
And
stuff like that.
likewise, just very honestly, I feel so blessed, to have had you come into my life and Sadie come into my life. You know, my wife just said to me, I think it was just last week, the week before, "Mark's very good for you," she said. "Yeah, Mark's very good for you." And she doesn't say that, you know. I can't remember her saying that about many people.
No pressure.
You've got a very special gift there, and the great thing is you're using it. So
Thank you, Paul.
continued success in the breath work. If anybody out there has got any questions, obviously they can go through to you. If they want some sort of like from a user's perspective, or what am I going in for? Hey, again, just like contact me, DM me, and I'll let you know my honest and truthful experiences. But it's been amazing. It's been amazing.
Thank you,
Okay,
Paul. I
sir.
appreciate it.
My pleasure. Yeah. Have a wonderful day. Talk to you soon.